Let's cultivate our motivation and remember the disadvantages of the afflictions for ourselves and for other living beings, and that unless we overcome them and eradicate them completely, there's never going to be peace in our mind or peace among living beings. Because as long as there are afflictions and the seeds of afflictions in sentient beings' minds, then there will be so many misinterpretations of events, so much suspicion, so much warfare. So while we want to help sentient beings temporally as much as we possibly can, to realize that the real way to help them, the best way to help them, is to help them to be free of cyclic existence. And so see helping sentient beings temporally as a way to accumulate the merit, to be able to realize emptiness and advance along the Bodhisattva stages to arrive at the full eradication of afflictions at full awakening. And so with a strong determination and very clear eyesight and perspective on the situation, then let's go in that direction, one step at a time. And sharing the teachings today is one of those steps. So, the mind, with the long-term view is so important. Because, of course, when compassion arises, when we see suffering in the world now, we want to do what we can about it. And we should do what we can, but again, with a bodhicitta motivation, that by doing that, we're accumulating the merit so we can go further along the path. Because if we have the motivation just to help living beings with their temporal problems and not to help them with more than that, then, what we'll be able to do for them will be limited, and we ourselves won't advance much and might deteriorate. Yeah. So it's important to keep those two ways of benefiting sentient beings in a useful balance, okay, without overemphasizing one to the exclusion of the other. Is that clear? Yeah. Okay. So we were talking, for example, about generosity yesterday. So one of the forms of generosity is giving material aid, giving service, protection, and love. Yeah, but they say the best kind of generosity is to be able to give the Dharma. But of course, to get sentient beings to the stage where they're ready to hear the Dharma, you have to help them in a temporal way. If they're hungry or sick or whatever, they're not going to be able to focus on hearing the teachings or practicing them. So we have to help in all the ways possible. But knowing that in our samsaric world, although we all want peace on earth, as we write in our season's greetings cards every year, that's not going to come about as long as all the sentient beings have minds that are in cyclic existence, minds under the influence of ignorance and polluted karma. Because as long as sentient beings have that, you take care of one problem they have, and then another one comes up, and you take care of that one, and another one comes up, and sometimes in the process of taking care of one problem, we create a few more. So, having that wisdom is really, really essential to benefiting living beings in the long term. Okay. So yesterday we talked about generosity and ethical conduct. Did you think a little bit about some of the ways to benefit sentient beings? And some of the sentient beings that need benefiting, and how important it is to have a mind of equanimity when we're benefiting, and not just like help our friends and harm our enemies, because the mind that does that is very much like the mind of a dog or any animals. They help their friends and harm their enemies. So there's nothing particularly human-like about that. I mean, you see with dogs, isn't it? The person who feeds them, they are their friend forever, and wag their tail and everything. And some stranger comes along and they bark and growl. Yeah. So sometimes human beings were the same. We just have different ways of wagging our tail and barking and growling, but the mind is very similar. Yeah, you please me, and I think you're great. I'll do anything for you. And you do something I don't like, and I'm gonna growl and bare my teeth and threaten to bite you. We don't really bite, but not with our teeth, but we bite in many other ways, don't we? Okay. So the equanimity is really, really important. So now we're on to the perfection of fortitude. So this is often translated as patience. But I never felt good about the term patience, because to me patience means it implies waiting for somebody. Like be patient, they'll come already, it'll happen already, just be patient. So shut up. Yeah, be patient is a nice way sometimes of saying shut up. Okay? And I never felt comfortable with that, because that didn't feel like what the Buddha would be advising us to do. And sometimes it's translated as tolerance, but tolerance sounds like, you don't really like them, but you're tolerating them because that's what you're supposed to do. Sometimes it's translated as forbearance. But what in the world does forbearance mean? I don't know. Yeah. So I really like the translation of fortitude, because to me fortitude implies inner strength. And I think when you look at the three kinds of fortitude, they have nothing to do with waiting for people or with tolerating things that you don't like. Or, sometimes it's translated as endurance. Oh my goodness, like you're a long distance runner and you're about to collapse and you've got to endure until the finish. So, when you look at the three kinds of fortitude, they have nothing to do with those kind of things. they all have to do with having inner strength. So you have three kinds of fortitude. One is to endure when, like, people criticize you or insult you. Yeah, so you need to have a strong mind to endure that. And the second is when you're suffering, So we undergo physical or mental suffering to be able to have the inner strength not to collapse and, to continue practicing. And then the third kind is the fortitude of practicing the Dharma, of, enduring the difficulties, or not just enduring, of having your inner strength to go through the difficulties of, for example, learning about emptiness and challenging your whole worldview and who you think you are and what you think life is about. So, a lot of inner strength to do that. So that's why I like fortitude. Okay. So, fortitude or patience is the ability to remain resolute and calm in the face of hardship or suffering. Okay. Remembering the disadvantages of anger, as explained earlier, inspires us to practice fortitude. So the earlier explanation was when we talked about generating love and compassion with the four measurables. Okay, so there was lots of talk there. Since we cannot identify who is a bodhisattva and who is not, it is better to restrain our anger towards all beings. In other words, be really careful who you get angry at, because if you get angry at holy beings, you create a whole ton of negative karma, and we already have enough of that, so who needs more? And since, the holy beings don't come with name tags saying, "Hi, I'm a Buddha, don't get angry at me or you'll destroy eons of merit," or "Hi, I'm a Bodhisattva, make offerings to me," they don't do that. Yeah, and we aren't always, they appear as ordinary beings, because that's the most skillful way to guide us. So, so it's better to work on our anger towards everybody. Cultivating fortitude brings many benefits. Others find us attractive, not only physically, but just as a human being. Yesterday we talked about how unattractive somebody who's angry is. Their face is flushed and their eyes are big and their, their jugular vein is like this. I remember one time I was traveling somewhere a long time ago. I was in a hotel and I turned the TV on, and there was some Christian preacher on, and he was talking about sinners going to hell and all this stuff, and his face was so angry, and I just remember you could see his vein beating and I thought, wow, that doesn't fit my idea of religion, which is supposed to bring peace. But, oh, my goodness. Yeah, so not very attractive when we're angry. Yeah. I guess he wanted to scare people so they would be good. But the thing is that being, quote, quote, good out of fear it accomplishes the behavior, but it's the wrong motivation. Yeah. So maybe with some people, like with small children, you have to do that sometimes because they can't understand more sophisticated things. If your kid's playing in the middle of the street, you don't go, "Susie dear, Johnny sweetheart, don't play in the middle of the street." You have to wake them up somehow so they sense the danger in what they're doing. Okay, but in general, having people do things out of fear doesn't work very well. So others find us attractive. We are close to holy beings. Yeah, because if we're really angry, even the holy beings have difficulty with us. No, but it means actually that mentally we're close to the holy beings because our minds think like them if we give up our anger. Our discriminating wisdom is keen, our future rebirths will be fortunate, and our non-virtues decrease. Fortitude is the basis for a good reputation, enabling us to benefit others. Yeah, so you want to have a good reputation? Be a nice person. Yeah, you don't have to do 10 backflips. Just, control your anger, reduce your anger, and then, people will be attracted to you and like you. So the perfection of fortitude is of 3 kinds. So the first one is the fortitude undisturbed by harm from others. So this involves not retaliating when others harm us. When others harm us, those dear to us, our friends and relatives, or anything that we feel possessive about, or our possessions. Okay, so here are some themes for reflection to avoid anger, resentment, and spite when others harm us. So these different tools here, they're found both in the Pali tradition and the Sanskrit tradition, most of them. Yeah, a few may be particular to either. So anger is the real enemy because it destroys all that is good, perpetuates harm, and spreads negativity. So good thing to spend some time reflecting on that's the effect of our anger. Yeah, we spread negativity, we perpetuate harm, and it destroys everything. Yeah. So whether it's a nation being at war because it's angry, or us being at war personally with another person, these are the results of acting out on anger. And all you have to do is look at the news every day, and it's quite clear the disadvantages of anger. So I think it's something to really be concerned about when we see people in leadership positions who are very angry. Yeah, because also when we're angry, we don't think clearly, and we make a lot of bad decisions. Yeah, that's how we wound up getting into Iraq, Vietnam, on and on and on. Okay. Then enemies are the result of angry thoughts and preconceptions. To free myself from enemies, I must relinquish anger. So we think first comes the enemy, and then comes our anger towards the person. Yeah, that's how we usually see it. Actually, the other person's just doing what they're doing. Our mind makes up a story about what they're doing and how intolerable that is, and how we have to let them know that they cannot act that way around us. Yeah, and so it's due to our, this mental factor called inappropriate, distorted attention. Yeah, sometimes inappropriate attention, that we, totally misconceive what is going on, and we create harm maybe where there isn't any. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What I have observed in my mind is that there is anger arising internally for whatever reasons due to either thoughts or feelings that are randomly coming up, mostly based on my thinking. Mm-hmm. And then if somebody concurrently happens to do something that interferes with me, or that, then I tend to impute that anger that I'm feeling onto that person and make it more than what it is. And then I by doing that, I think that that person is the cause of my anger. Whereas the anger was there all along as a result of things that I was thinking.
Yeah.
So my own internal processes, and my mind is confused in then assigning that as the person being the cause of it.
Yeah. So sometimes it happens that there's no anger in our mind, and then a situation happens and we misinterpret it. Other times we're just ruminating on general anger, just throughout the day, having negative thoughts and ruminating on it. And then, you could say being in a bad mood, just thinking about negative things. And then it's just whatever somebody does. It's that old thing with the spatula, or how they put they don't put the spatula where it belongs, so they put the cups right side up instead of upside down, or they, forget to turn off the computer printer, or they, feed the cats twice, or any small thing. And we go ballistic. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm an angry person, so I'm just going to ask you, like, how would you, that he's talking to?
Yes.
That you turn it on. So, I'm just going to talk. I'll just talk about it. I'm a teacher.
Maybe for the recording.
Oh, recording?
Yeah.
Oh, just press the button.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on.
Okay.
Hello. One time I saw a guy hit a dog with a shovel.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say there's no place for anger, like in theory that makes perfect sense to me. But, I mean, how do you look at that with compassion? Like, how do you
look at that? Well, you have compassion for the dog.
Right.
When you understand karma, then you also have compassion for the guy who hit him with the shovel, because that guy is creating the cause for his own suffering. He's putting, whenever we harm others, we put the seeds of destructive karma in our own minds. So at the same time we harm others, we're harming ourselves. But the harm we do to ourselves ripens later.
So what would be the course of action? Just is that dialogue at that moment? Is it like, do you talk to that man?
Yeah, I mean, as much as you can intervene, you intervene and do what you can. So here's where, first you have to keep your mind calm. And then you think, well, okay, what's the best way to go about this? Is it to go talk to the man? Is it to distract him? Is it, what's the best way to,
So letting him fill the shovel was probably not the best way.
Letting him what?
Letting the human fill the shovel on his head was probably not the best way.
No, I don't think so. That would probably wind you up in jail. Yeah, wouldn't it?
It's assault.
Yeah, it's assault.
Animal Protective Services exists for a reason.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you come sit up here?
Because I have to leave a little bit early. There's something in you.
Then you just get up.
And what I want to say...
You make me so mad you don't listen to what I say.
I did the shovel. For me, what I need to remember is, when myself I get angry, do I do things weird? Do I hit people? Do I swear? I do that. But the guy is the same as me. So that's where, for me, the compassion I need to work on. To work on myself, forgive myself that I have done those stupid things, and seeing that other people also that do stupid things. And we just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So that guy, you don't know what happened to him. Maybe his wife just screamed at him, and you asshole, whatever. And the dog got it. So I need to look at myself and stop. And that's how I'll be able to help people to do the same. So if you go to the guy and scream at him, you asshole, but it won't help. He's probably really confused, very angry for whatever reason that I don't know, how to help him to get out of there. So that's for me what is compassion, to be able to understand why.
Well put. Okay, anger destroys my virtue and merit. Without these, I cannot fulfill my bodhisattva aspiration. Until I do that, all sentient beings will be immersed in dukkha. Okay, so anger completely, it's not just that it's a hindrance to our spiritual aims, but it actually actively distances us from attaining our spiritual aims, because anger destroys the merit, the goodness in our own mind. And you can kind of feel that, when you practice for a while, even when you don't. After you get really in a rage, do you feel uplifted and full of goodness? No, so right away you can see how it harms. Then no good comes from anger. Due to it, my good qualities and reputation decline. I cannot sleep or eat well. Okay, so there's no positive qualities that are positive results that come from anger. And I can't remember if it's on this list, but I don't want to forget to mention about how anger, when we're angry, we, like I mentioned before, we don't really think very clearly. And so we make impulsive decisions, and due to not thinking clearly, we often choose things that wind up getting us in bigger and bigger messes. Yeah? And then we have to deal with the big mess that we just created because our anger got out of hand. So in the prison work that I do, that all of us do, 99% of the people we work with are there because of anger. So, and not thinking clearly when they're angry.
Last time we were at UU, I was talking to this nice older gentleman who was probably in the era of only being able to be angry or happy, or what are those two feelings we normally talk about older folks, especially men, thinking that they're only allowed to have. Besides the point. Anyway.
I think older folks are fantastic.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And you young'uns.
He was telling me about how anger is really like a motivating force for him. And then he was telling me, afterwards that he gets angry at first, and then like his rational thinking comes back and he can do something productive, but it's all because of the anger. And I was trying to explain to him that like the second you're able to think clearly and use your rational mind, you're not really angry anymore.
Yeah.
But I'd like better words so that I can actually stick with someone.
Okay. People often, when they say things like that, is because I once gave a talk, I think it was the University of Michigan, to people in the conflict resolution department, and I was talking about the defects of anger, and they got quite upset with me. Yeah, it was really interesting. All these people who do conflict resolution, all of a sudden they're saying, but there's benefits to anger. I'm going, yeah, tell me. And anger lets you know that something's wrong. Yeah? And my response was, is anger the only way you can know something's wrong? Yeah? Is that the only way? And sometimes you're angry when nothing's wrong. Yeah. So the something wrong it lets you know is that something's wrong with you. But, I imagine that man may be thinking in a similar way. That anger lets him know that something's wrong and that he needs to act. But, when you look at your mind and see how unclear it becomes when we're angry, then you realize that compassion can also let you know something's wrong. It doesn't have to be anger. Okay, so pointing that out to somebody, but do it in a nice way. Okay. This suffering will consume that karma, no longer enabling it to obscure my mind. So when we suffer, if we get sick or whatever, or sometimes even, just a lot of problems all happen at once, we get really angry. It's not fair. I don't want to have all these problems. I want them to go away, and I want people to, be nice and but if we think about it from the perspective of karma, then suffering feelings are a result of our own destructive karma. And so if we say, okay, I'm experiencing suffering, that karma is ripening right now, it's finishing, because when karma ripens, it finishes. So then it's not going to be obscuring my mind anymore. Then that gives us a lot of inner strength to go through the difficulty we're having without getting so angry at it. Okay? And you just think, I created the cause, and now it's ripening on me, and now it's finishing, and much better I experience this suffering now than that the same karma ripens in a lower rebirth later on, and I experience worse suffering. Although this suffering arises from the harmful deeds of others, this body of mine is the field for that suffering. And the karma that made me take this body was created by me alone. There is no reason to blame others for my misery. So Shantideva in chapter 6 talks about this. If somebody harms me physically, there's two things going on. They have a weapon, and I have a body. If one of those two things is missing, there's not going to be any harm. I can't, deal with what's going on with them, but I took a body, and why did I take a body? Due to my own craving and clinging and karma. So that part's my responsibility. If I had practiced the determination to be free and realized emptiness before, then I wouldn't be having this pain right now. Shantideva is quite... He won't let us get away with anything. We keep trying. The person harming me is my teacher, enabling me to cultivate fortitude. So yesterday, when we chanted the 8 verses after lunch, and today when we'll do the 37 practices after lunch, there's so many verses about seeing the person who harms us as our teacher and respecting them. Yeah. And of course, when we're angry, that's the last thing we want to do is see that person as our teacher. But in actual fact, that person is benefiting us, because due to what they're doing, we see our own anger, and then we have the opportunity to learn the disadvantages of anger through recognizing it. Okay? In my own case, I had a lot of anger. I didn't think I had anger because I didn't explode at other people. But there was a lot of anger inside. And my teachers, I don't think, could come and say, "Oh, dear Tridran, you have a lot of anger. You need to work on it," because I didn't think I had any. So what did they do? They sent me to be the disciplinarian and the spiritual program coordinator in Italy, working with a bunch of macho Italian monks. And it was there that I realized I had a problem with anger. Yeah. So I had to, in the process of recovering from that experience, thank those people for showing me something about myself that I otherwise would not have been able to recognize. And they were giving me the opportunity not only to recognize my anger, but to start to do something about it. Yeah. Because if we're only around people who are nice to us, then we don't have the opportunity to develop fortitude. And without developing fortitude, there's no way to become a Buddha. Yeah. So bodhisattvas love when there's an enemy, because it gives them the chance to practice. Yeah.
But do you think anger is natural?
Do I think anger is natural? What do you mean by natural?
Is it the natural part of the human condition?
I think it's a natural part of samsara. Anger is definitely one of the three poisonous minds that perpetuate samsara. So in that respect, if you're a being in samsara who's under the influence of ignorance and doesn't understand reality, then yes, anger is very natural. Yeah. Is it something that is beneficial and that we have to have? No. Yeah, there's a way of uprooting the anger and counteracting it. Okay. Yeah. Let me add something on. Sometimes we think in certain situations that the only possible response we could have is to get angry, that there's no other choices in terms of how we could frame the situation, how we could feel about it. We get very narrow-minded, as if anger is the only possible thing I could feel in this situation. And that's very, very limited, because it's not the only possible thing we could feel. Yeah. But when we're angry, we go and talk to all our friends, and they say, yes, you have a good reason to be angry. Yeah. And so then, of course, because they're our friends, if they told us, no, you have no reason to be angry, they wouldn't be our friends anymore, because you're siding with the enemy. But, they side with us, then they support us. Oh, yes, everybody thinks I've got to be angry. And so we validate our anger that way.
I was just thinking when you were speaking about that I often think about physiology, and I was thinking, actually, one way to think about it, that our body is under the control of afflictions, is we've created this body by our afflictions, and our afflictions actually probably, I think they're learning now that it even influences our DNA. So the fact that we have these centers in our brain that respond to anger and this and that is probably something that we have created, because there are children that have funny genetic things and they don't have anger. They might have just not created this part in their mind. What I'm trying to say is that when we talk about having taken this body, we've actually created this body over, if you think evolutionarily over a long time.
Yeah.
If you think about the mind not having anger is inherent in it, then the body, the fact that we have these centers and we're all wired this way, in a sense, over a long time, is probably something that we have co-created.
Yeah. Yeah, created by our... Why did we take this kind of body?
Yeah.
Due to our karma. Yeah. And so these things, like they often tell us we're hardwired, to get angry and whatever. When there's threat, we're hardwired to, fight or flight. But the thing is, you can respond forcefully, or you can leave the situation, and that behavior can be motivated by anger, or it can be motivated by wisdom or by compassion. So, you can be angry and you can fight with somebody. You can also be so angry that you leave. Okay? So anger is not the behavior. Anger is what's going on in the mind. You could have a different mental state, and realize there's danger and, do something to intervene to stop the danger, but you don't need to be angry to do that. Or also, without anger, you can leave the situation. So we can't tell just by the action, because it's the mentality that is the anger. Okay? And so the fight or flight, is very linked in with self-grasping. But even if there's some physiological thing going on, I think that what's going on in your mind can be different. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned how if children are playing on the road, you might express anger because they very well might not understand.
Not that you might express anger. You might speak forcefully. Those two are different.
Yeah, because my thought is, if I see a child playing with matches, I'm going to speak rather forcefully to them. I'm going to speak rather forcefully to a child playing with matches that endangers me and other people around me and the children themselves.
Yeah.
But if I see an adult playing with matches, firecrackers, and a very dry forest, knowing myself, I'm gonna get angry because it's all the more ridiculous and harmful that they should know better.
Yeah. They should know better, and they don't.
And I'm going to assume that the only language they're going to understand in that moment is anger, and I'm going to default to it. And I'll even have that thought. I'll be like, I'll go to handle it calmly, and my calm is extremely terse because I'm just fighting all the anger in myself. And then I'll hear from their side, oh yeah, well, I mean, it's cool, we're just kind of playing, like, we know what we're doing. Then I'm going to get angry, realizing, like, okay, calm did not work.
And would slugging him work?
Would hitting me work?
Potentially, if it was the instant way of putting out the fire real quick, and the fire was about to catch, I would imagine that knocking the source out, i.e., knocking the body, maintaining the source out, might work. But I wasn't initially escalating the physical violence. I could see how it would go. Knowing me.
But if you're 1 second off, actually you hit the guy, it may make the fire catch quicker because he drops the match and then it lights up.
I'm pretty agile.
The thing about anger is that it gives us a rush of adrenaline in our system, and so it makes us feel falsely powerful. And we don't like feeling helpless and powerless. So the adrenaline, makes us feel like, now I can do whatever I need to do. Yeah. But again, it's a false kind of power because we aren't thinking clearly. And just spend some time, okay, next meditation session or break time. Think about what you've done under the influence of anger and how much of it has actually been beneficial to you in your life and karmically. Yeah. And look at the results of when you get angry. What has happened in your life as a result of your anger? Yeah. And it's very good. I mean, this is how we look, check if the Dharma teachings are right or not. We look at our own experience. Yeah. Somebody want to share something that happened? Yeah?
Well, just in any case, anger tends to feed on itself, partly because you start out saying something just easy criticism, but then it's not responded to properly, and so you get angry, and that adrenaline comes and it makes you feel better, and having then acted on your anger, you feel better for about 5 seconds. And then guilty for the next 5 days. That's what happens.
Yeah. Do you have an example you want to
That was
share?
just beautifully said. I mean, this is the perfect session for me to anger. I've just never thought of that because it does make me feel. It does make me feel like a sense of power, and I just never thought about it that way. But it definitely serves that purpose for me. So just one question. So as far as Buddhism is concerned, does anger exist just to be overcome? Like, is that why it exists? Is that why it's there?
Yeah, the one good quality of anger is that you can overcome it. Yeah?
I remember I was out driving on a peninsula. There was quite steep cliffs and roads with a couple of friends, and for some reason I was in a terribly foul mood and was seething with cold anger because I don't expert, I implode. And I didn't want to be where we were, and as we were driving back, in my anger I took a corner too hard, and then because it was raining, the car lost control and we swerved back and forth. And luckily my reflexes were quick enough that I prevented us from going off the cliff, but we could have very easily gone off.
Yeah. Yeah. One young man, when I was teaching about anger, he told me the story of he suffered a lot from road rage, and so he was on the highway one time with his fiancée, and somebody cut him off on the highway, and he got so angry, and so he sped up, to get ahead of the other guy, and then he cut the other guy off, and he lost control of the car and went 4 lanes across the highway. Thank goodness there was not another car where he went, and he wound up off the, in a ditch. And he realized he could have killed his fiancée due to his own anger, his own road rage. So, good to, spend some time and think about the results of our anger. I know sometimes something will I don't like the way somebody that did that. But it's like, I also know if I say something to that person, it's gonna, they're not just gonna say, oh yes, thank you, I will do this as directed. They're gonna tell me and explain to me why they did, what they were really meaning, and that I was wrong and how I was interpreting it, and they were okay, and on and on and on. And I think, I don't have time for that. So I don't bother saying anything to them because it's so unpleasant listening to somebody who's being defensive, So, yeah.
Kind of putting two and two together here. We asked about thinking about incidences, and I hadn't really put this together in this way before, but when I was younger, I didn't feel anger. It was quite suppressed in an unhealthy way. Mm-hmm. It was probably what I needed to do in my growing up. So I was in my 20s, in college, and even after I finished college, it was way after that I was in grad school when I kind of worked this out. But I remember before I was in grad school, one time I had this job in LA, and for 9 months, and I got paid once a month, and they screwed up my paycheck all 9 times. And I was because I didn't let off any steam earlier, at one point I was in this rage, and I had an hour commute, and I was driving home, and I just went into this full-fledged rage, and I was changing lanes in a really crazy way, and this little voice inside of me said, "You're going to kill yourself unless you settle down here," because that's what, was so out of control of my anger. But I hadn't really thought about it until just now, how when you suppress anger, which you can do with meditation too, in an unhealthy way, or however you do it, when you suppress these things, then when they finally do come out, they almost have nothing to do but come out as rage, because you've lost the ticket all the way before then. I don't know if that's what other people have experienced. I know that was when I was at that age. I can remember I would never get angry at other people, but if this rage would come out, it would always be kind of inanimate, in the sense of I wouldn't be around anyone, and I didn't break things or anything, but I don't know, I never could do it around people. But I just am so happy not to have that, that situation, that psychological makeup that I had when I was younger.
Although this person is harming me now, in the past he has been my friend and someone who has helped. And so that could be in previous lives, but also it could be in this life. Because who are the people you get the most angry at? The people you care about, or strangers?
Ones you care about.
The people you care about. Yeah? So the people, that who have been your friends, who have benefited you because of attachment to them, then they also become the people that we get the most enraged with and say the absolutely worst things to. Yeah. I mean, really, isn't it? We would never speak to a stranger the way we speak to the people we love. It's outrageous. Yeah, it's totally illogical. But the people we love are the people we let loose on the most. And then, of course, we break the trust, and they're unhappy, and we're miserable, and then you have drama, and, doesn't really lead to a good outcome. So we're not advocating suppressing the anger or repressing the anger. We're advocating learning to see it from a different perspective so that we don't get angry at all. So any of these ways here, if we really think about them deeply and integrate them in our way of thinking, then the anger won't come. Or if the anger starts to come, we can immediately say, "Oh, I'm not perceiving the situation correctly. I should look at it this way." Yeah. All beings are like my children. How can I become angry at their misdeeds done through unknowing? Like the guy playing with firecrackers in the forest, like an unknowing, ignorant child. Yeah. Do we get angry at, you were saying before, you wouldn't get angry at a kid playing with matches. But somehow, adults who should know better, but don't know better. Yeah. But how many times in our life, like what Venerable Yeshe was saying, have we done things where we should have known better, but we didn't know better? Or we did know better and we did it anyway. Yeah, we've all done that, haven't we? So, we have actually, before you realize emptiness, you're called a childish being. There's a reason for it. Okay? Or maybe that's before you enter a path. Either way, there's definitely a reason for it. Okay, this harm is showing me the suffering nature of samsara. I must work to end the dukkha of myself and others. Okay, so this problematic situation, rather than getting angry at it, this is showing me the nature of samsara. And the way to solve the unsatisfactory nature of samsara is not to get angry, but to practice and get out of samsara. Okay, it is the nature of the cognitive faculties to encounter pleasant and unpleasant objects. Yeah, so we have sense objects, we encounter pleasant things, we encounter unpleasant things. Let's develop some equanimity. The harmful action, and recipient of the harm have ceased at this very moment. They are past. With whom shall I be angry, and who is becoming angry? Since all phenomena are selfless, who can harm whom? It's a really good way to think. Okay? Because whatever we're getting angry at has already ceased. Yeah? And we can really see how anger depends on conceptuality, because we could be sitting here in a very safe place with very kind people, and and then we start thinking of what somebody did to us before, and we just get totally, outraged, enraged, and angry, and absolutely nothing is happening to us at this moment. Yeah, you can spend a whole meditation session being furious. And then when the bell rings, you realize that nothing is happening. You're sitting here, and nothing is happening to you. Where is this anger coming from? All of our conceptuality about something that happened before. So the Buddha looks at all these beings as dear ones. How can I hate somebody the Buddha holds dear? Yeah. Well, sometimes I have so many stories of which I won't tell now, but of these disagreeable Dharma friends who my teachers treat so nicely. And I just get so mad. But, why am I mad at somebody that my teachers are seeing, in the light of, a beloved being? my mind's completely seeing that person in the opposite way than my teachers do. Or you think of the Buddha, the Buddha looks at everybody and sees kind living beings. And here's my mind seeing the opposite of what the Buddha sees. So who has a correct cognition and who has a wrong view? I'm correct because this guy really is a jerk. Well, that's hard to, push over on a Buddha, make him convince. Mere phenomena alone exist, devoid of being I or mine, arising and disintegrating due to causes and conditions. They do not come from anywhere. They do not go anywhere. They are not established anywhere. There is no self-sufficient agency in anything whatsoever. Okay, so everything around us, all the beings, all the events, whatever, they arise due to causes and conditions. They cease due to causes and conditions. None of them are I. None of them are a substantial I or inherently existent I. None of them are an inherently existent or substantially existent mine. They're just operating due to causes and conditions. So it's not like there was this harmful thing, kind of waiting in the background, ready to, jump out at me. And it's not like when it exists in this moment, it's concrete. And it's not like after this moment, it's still concrete. Yeah. Before things arise, they don't exist. They exist for this instant, or even less than that instant, and then they cease. Yeah. And none of them are me or mine. So what in the world am I getting so upset about? The person and the action are different. While an action may be harmful or wrong, the person who does it is not evil. He has the potential to become a Buddha. The real troublemaker is his afflictions that make him act in detrimental ways. Okay? So the problem isn't the other person. The problem is their afflictions. Yeah? And we can say the action that they're doing is dreadful, but we can't say the person is evil because that person has the Buddha nature. Yeah. So our liking to paint people as all good or all bad doesn't really hold water. Yeah, it's completely unrealistic. Because people are not their actions. The action and the person who did it are different. Yeah? And we tend to look at the worst things somebody did in their whole life and think that's the way they always have been and always will be. And a lot of times our own self-judgmental mind looks at the worst thing we've ever done and judges ourselves and think that's all I am is one action. But the action arose due to causes, it ceases due to causes and conditions. We can purify it, it's not who we are. Okay, so we have to learn to forgive others and also to forgive ourselves. Oh, so there's the picture of Milarepa's cave there. There's a great story about Milarepa when he was meditating. And one day all these spirits came to bug him, these very ugly spirits, and wanted to disturb his meditation. They were out to get him. And Milarepa looked at them and said, "How come you're here?" And the spirit said, "How come you called us with all your wrong conception mind?" Yeah? So it's our wrong conception mind that causes demons and spirits and so on to appear. Yeah. It's a good story, and it's true, Yeah?
Where's that cave?
It's near the Nepali-Tibetan border. I think it's on the Tibetan side. I could be wrong. Could be on the Nepali side.
I think with the different practices of MEC, one thing that I'm beginning to understand is there's nothing that person can do that can make me angry.
Yeah.
It's the thought that I'm thinking that is giving rise to the anger and the violence.
Yeah.
So regardless of what they're doing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one way that I sometimes deal with anger, is I'll ask myself, why am I angry? And it's always, they did this, they did that. Yes, they did that, but why am I angry? They did this and they did. Yes, but why am I angry? And I keep on asking myself that question till I see that actually my anger doesn't have anything to do with them. It has everything to do with the way I'm thinking. How I'm framing this situation. And it's the same way with attachment and jealousy and all the other afflictions. They all have to do with the way we're thinking, how we're describing the situation to ourselves. And so that's what gives us power, because if we change the way we're thinking, the pain, the negative emotion, it can all be overcome. Because they're caused by wrong conceptualization. We stop that wrong conceptualization, then the negative emotion can't continue. The Pali tradition explains that bodhisattvas dissect the experiences of harm and anger into their parts and see that each factor arises dependent on other ones and is transient, arising and passing away in the briefest moment. What is there to cling to? Being impermanent, these factors are unsatisfactory, and being both impermanent and unsatisfactory, they are not suitable to be considered mine, I, or myself. There's no person being criticized and no person feeling hurt about due to it. Okay, so this is another very good meditation to do when somebody, hurts your feelings or says something you don't like. To ask yourself, who is feeling hurt? Who is feeling angry? And try and find the I that is the person feeling angry or feeling hurt or feeling afraid. Try and find that person. The Sanskrit tradition explains that after meditating on emptiness, bodhisattvas view all elements of the harm, the harmer, the harmed, and the action of harming as deceptive, similar to reflections and illusions, in that they deceptively appear to exist inherently, although they do not. This wisdom enables bodhisattvas to bear suffering without physical or mental anguish, and thus without anger. So, like right now, it's raining. So, we have a choice. We could get really angry that it's raining. Yeah? It's raining, and I don't have my raincoat with me, and I don't have an umbrella, and I'm going to slip in the mud, and I don't like the mud, and, I liked yesterday because it was so sunny, and I'm so pissed off because it's raining. Yeah? So very easy. We can create a whole mood about the rain. couldn't we? We may already be doing that. Or we can look at the rain and say, wow, you can hear all the trees and the plants singing because they're getting watered, they're getting nourished. Our water level is getting replenished, and we depend on groundwater. We don't have city water system here, so our groundwater is getting replenished. Yeah, the more it rains, the more water absorbs, the less danger of fire there's going to be. Yeah, so you can look at it either way, and you can either be in a good mood or you can be in a bad mood, depending on how you look at it. I don't think they're here putting the siding on today, are they?
They're here.
They're here?
Yes.
Are they working outdoors?
Well, I'm going to go up there in a minute. I'm hoping that he's working on the bathroom, but we'll see.
Okay.
I saw someone wandering around inside upstairs.
Oh, inside. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's hope they're dry. Practicing fortitude and being compassionate do not mean our physical and verbal actions are always passive and pleasing. So this is a big mistake people make, that if you don't get angry, it's just Susie cream cheese. Oh, that's fine, nothing bothers me, that's okay, you're about to bomb North Korea, I don't care, I think that's great, it's going to be so exciting. Yeah. So don't think that the absence of anger is going to make you a fool. Okay, you can still see, discern, what is harmful and what is helpful and what is virtuous and what is not virtuous, and you can still raise your voice and you can still intervene when harm is happening, and you can still do things to prevent harm. Okay, it's just you do it with a totally different motivation. So giving up anger, again, it doesn't mean you. Here, please, have a cup of tea. Yeah. Let's invite Roy Moore to the Abbey and offer him some tea. Roy Moore. He is the Republican candidate for senator in Alabama to take over Jeff Sessions. See? Yeah? Huh?
Frying pans and fires.
Yeah. So, he's the guy who raised a pistol at one of his rallies, who's the one who has been accused of, when he was in his 30s, sexually molesting a 14-year-old girl. He's the one who refused to take the 10 Commandments off of public land after he was told to. What else has he done? Many other things. Yeah. But yeah, he needs to learn the Dharma. But, really, he does. He does. This guy is. There's something else he did. I can't remember what it was that I thought was like worse than these other ones even. But, yeah. Okay. Maybe we should invite him to tea. Yeah. Oh, because he is an evangelical Christian that is preaching Christianity and yet acting opposite to the way Jesus would act. Yeah. At least in my perspective, I don't think Jesus would condone some of the things that he's doing. Okay. Okay, so it doesn't mean our physical and verbal actions are always passive and pleasing. While calm behavior is appropriate in some situations, in others we may need to act forcefully or assertively to stop one person from harming another. Yet even in such situation, we act without anger. When someone harms us and then, realizing his error, sincerely apologizes, it is crucial that we forgive him and do not hold a grudge. Continuing to remind the person of his error or secretly wishing for harm to befall him runs counter to the Bodhisattva spirit. Okay. Oh, so this thing of, not being angry but acting very forcefully. Venerable Jendi, one of our friends who's a Chinese Buddhist nun, she'll be coming in January, can meet her. She told me a story one time about her teacher, Venerable Wu Yin, who also will be coming. And they were having a discussion about something, and then a phone call came for Venerable Wu Yin. And their discussion was fine, And then when whoever was on the other side of the phone that came for Venerable Wu Yin just started shouting at the person about something. And Venerable Jenny's going, oh my goodness, my teacher has quite a temper, what kind of Buddhist action is this? But then, as soon as she put the phone down, that was the end. They returned to their conversation. And she realized that her teacher was not angry, but her teacher was speaking very forcefully to get something across to someone else, because that was the only way the other person could hear it. Yeah.
You just made me realize something.
Mm-hmm.
My mom would be so seemingly upset, yelling at me and my brother. We were just sitting there taking it, and then she would get a phone call, and she'd pick up the phone and just be like, "Oh, hi, how's it going? Yeah, we should do that. That sounds like a great idea." And she'd hang up the phone and yell at us. We would look at each other like, "Wait, is she mad? What is this? I can't understand this." But that makes sense that she was just being forceful.
Yeah.
But then we just started waiting to ask her for things that we knew she was going to say no about, or get angry, or tell her, like, hey, I broke this thing. We just wait till she was on the phone with her friends. Hey, the TV broke.
Yeah. That's like the son of one Dharma practitioner I knew in Idaho. He said his dad is so much nicer when he comes back from retreat, so that's when he asks him if he can have things and tells him unpleasant stuff. Okay.